Caged. What is caged? Cage system is something that a lot of guitarists get confused about. Lots of people understand bits of it, but don't understand the whole of it. Some people think it's the best thing going. It's the best thing since sliced bread. Some people think it's totally overrated. Some people think you don't need it. You probably use it whether you think you use it or not, and it is mega useful. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do here is explain to you what the whole of the cage system means. Now, I've watched tons of YouTube videos, and there's a lot of YouTube videos out there about cage that explain part of the cage system, but they don't explain the whole system, and that leaves people confused as to what the cage system is. I bet most guitarists who use the cage system either use part of it or they're baffled by what it really means. Now, part of the problem is this isn't written down somewhere. There isn't a person called Mr. Caged who came up with this system and said, this is the cage system, right? It's developed, and different people have got different ideas about what it is. So what I'm trying to do is, if you like, bring all those ideas together to explain it as a whole. Okay. Right. So some people think that it's just to do with chord tones, right? Some people think it's just to do with chords, but it's much more than this. It's a really complete system for developing navigation across the fretboard. So you can see everywhere you want to go on the fretboard, you understand the fretboard, you can use chord tones, you can use pentatonic scales, and you can use major and minor scales within it, right? Now this is kind of a bit of a revelation for a lot of people, because they think, well, hang on, what's cage got to do with pentatonic? What's cage got to do with major and minor? A lot of people think it's just related around chord tones, but it's much more than that. Okay, so let's have a think about, let's start off with doing the cage shapes, and let's move on from there. And then we're going to focus on one position in cage and really pull it apart. Now, cage, as you know, refers to the 5 chords, C, A, G, E, D, okay? Now those 5 chords give us 5 distinct zones on the fretboard. This is really important to understand. So you can solo in the C zone, you can solo in the A zone, the G zone, the E zone, the D zone. Now when we refer to these, we're not saying it's, the C zone doesn't refer to a C chord or soloing over a C major backing track. It refers to a zone, okay? Because the C shape doesn't necessarily mean it's a C chord. Right, so we'll explain this in a minute. So we're going to do this in C, all right, to start off with. So the first chord we'd have would be a C chord. So this isn't what we're going to play, this is just about understanding it, okay? So this is the C chord. Now the next letter in cage is A. So we want to play an A-shaped chord, but it's got to be a C chord. It takes a little while to get your head around that, but that's really important. So it's an A shape, but we're sliding that up here and barring across here. Now we've got a bar here, because if we slide these up, effectively we've got to slide these notes up as well. So we get a C chord here. This is a C chord, but it's an A-shaped C chord, right? A lot of people will play it like that, okay? The next letter in caged is G, all right? So if we think about a G chord, if we slide it up, we want to slide it up to a C, it's going to slide up there, but we haven't slid up these notes. So if we do it like that, if we slide that there and we bar there, this is a C chord. Now you'll hardly ever see anyone playing a C chord like that. I'm not suggesting you play the C chord like that. This is about understanding the shapes, okay? It's not about playing the chords, all right? This is another thing people get confused about. So after G, we've got E, okay? So we think about an E chord, we slide it up. Obviously, we've got to slide up all the other notes. So that's just an E-shaped bar chord. Everyone knows really well. And then finally, we've got the D. There's the D chord. If we slid it up, so we get this here, we can play this shape, this here. So this is a C chord as well. Right. So you've got to understand those shapes. That's really important. And you've got to remember they're all C chords, right? But they're A-shaped, G-shaped, E-shaped, D-shaped, right? But they're all C chords. Okay, So we're going to focus on one position, right? Just to make this really clear and really explore that position as much as possible. So we're going to think about this G shape here, all right? So it's a G shape, but it's a C chord. Now, within that, we've got these notes. Or we could go, it doesn't really make any difference. Some people play a G chord like this, some people play it like that, okay? So let's talk about this chord here, right? So this chord, okay, is a C chord, but it's a G-shaped C chord. And within it, it's got the notes of the C, obviously the notes of the C chord. So a C chord has got a C, note 1, note 3, which is an E, and note 5, which is a G. So a C chord has got the notes C, E, and G in. So this chord here obviously is comprised of the notes C, E, G. We've got another C there, an E there, and we've got a C there. Or we could, like I said, if you do, some people do a G chord like this, and then we'd have another G there, wouldn't we? Right, okay. So when we're soloing, okay, this is like, let's call this level number 1 in CAGED. When we're soloing, we can use these notes within our solo over a C major backing track, and they're going to sound really good because they're coming straight out of the chord, right? So we can choose all these notes. Obviously, we wouldn't play them like that. I'm just outlining it, right? So that is level 1, okay? But that, and then a lot of people think that's what CAGED is about, and it stops there, but it doesn't, okay? CAGED also includes pentatonic scales and minor and major scales. So let's go to level 2. Let's think about the pentatonic. Now the reason I've chosen this G position here, right, this G zone if you like, is because within it is contained this. You know this is position 1 of the minor pentatonic, right? But it is a minor pentatonic, and we're not going to go too much into this, but for those of you who understand the correlation between minor and major, it's also C major, right? Okay, you can hear it resolving to that. A minor and C major basically the scales contain the same notes. So we could think of it as A minor pentatonic or C major pentatonic. So what you should see is this is an important thing. You see this, right, contained within this. Okay, this is a really big important step. So what you're seeing when you're playing that C major pentatonic scale is you're seeing within it this G-shaped chord. All right, remember I said G-shaped, the C chord, but it's G-shaped. So when you're soloing, lines like that, okay, are going to pull you towards that C major tonality because I'm highlighting the notes in the C major chord, right? The problem that people have when they're soloing in C major, using, say, C major pentatonic, is because they're so familiar with soloing in A minor, thinking of this A minor, they come up with A minor lines like this. Right? Now that sounds good in A minor because I'm playing around this A minor note, but it's not going to sound so good in C major. You've got to think about the notes themselves. It's no good just understanding these shapes, okay? Now this is where CAGED really helps you, because CAGED will make you focus on the chord tones, all right? So you can noodle around in here, but you're focusing on these notes that are contained within the G-shaped chord. If you do that, it will sound like you're in C major, not in A minor. Remember, C major, A minor, pentatonics, both the same notes, but the order that you put them in and the way you play them should be different, okay? And if they're not different, you're not highlighting the tonality you're in. So that's really important. Okay, so that is level 1. Okay, so the next level is level 3. So level 3 is the major scale, and we're going to see the major scale overlaid over the top of the other 2 layers. right? We've got our G shape, we've got our pentatonic shape, and now we're going to see this. I've got to land on that C, it just doesn't sound right. Okay, so I'm now playing a full major scale. I'm starting on the C. There's my major 7th. Okay, so I'm playing a full major scale, but I'm seeing that overlaid over the top of the other 2 levels. So number 1 is the chord tones, number 2 is the pentatonic scale, number 3 is the major scale. So when I'm playing the major scale, right, I'm seeing within that the most important notes, and the most important notes are level 1, the chord, so I'm seeing that, the notes of the chord in it, level 2, the pentatonic, and then level 3, the major. So I hang my playing around all that, yeah? If I just jumped straight to level 3 and I didn't understand about chord tones and which notes sound the strongest, I'm going to play all notes and give them equal weight, and it won't sound good. If I hang around on this note and this note and this note a lot, you can see straight away it sounds pretty horrible, okay? Because I'm playing around with notes that aren't strong notes. But the CAGED system points out the strong notes to you. It points out the chord tones. It points out the next level of harmonious notes, which is in the pentatonic scale, then the next level, which is the major scale, all right? So when I'm playing the major scale, I'm thinking about those CAGED positions and those pentatonic positions within it. And this will make your soloing sound a lot more melodic, all right? So this is the whole of the CAGED system, all right? It's not just about chord tones. It's not about just the chords. It's about these positions, right? This is one position here. This is your, in C major, this is your G position, right? And within it, you see those 3 levels, and that really informs your soloing. Okay, so finally, what I'm going to try and do is put some ideas together, play a little mini solo, try and keep it largely around that position, and we'll see how it all fits together. Okay, so what I was doing when I was soloing, I'm doing lines, and I did stray into other positions. We'll talk about that a little bit, okay? I'm doing lines playing around with... Okay, because there, I'm coming back down the G shape here, look. So there I'm just playing around with that note. Now that note is in the major scale, but I'm kind of coming back to the root note to make it interesting. Now when I'm going up here, I'm playing, there's the D shape there. And I'm thinking, the pentatonic position I'm now in is pentatonic position 4. But I'm seeing that overlaid on top of my D shape and my C shape here. So I can join the C shape and the D shape together and then fool around with position 4 a little bit maybe. I'll come down here, position 3. Work my way down to position 1, thinking caged again. So I'm mixing all those things together. I'm mixing the major scale ideas. I'm mixing the pentatonic ideas. I'm mixing the chord tones. So I'm thinking that this is my G zone here, right? And I've got position 1 mixed in with that. Okay, this is my E zone. I'm seeing position 2 of the pentatonic mixed in with that. And then, so after E, I've got my D zone. And I can either go up to position 4 from my D zone or down to position 3. So I can see how these pentatonic positions are mixed in with the individual cage chords, okay? And then on top of that, I'm also seeing how the major scale is mixed in with that. So when I'm in my D position, I can see the major scale out of that, okay? I'm not going to do all the major scale positions because that'll be a lot of information. And I wanted just to keep it really just to focus on that one position so you can get really in depth with that, okay? I'm sure you can figure out the rest of them. All right, so that is the most important thing. It's seeing that it's to me, it's a 3-stage system, right? You're thinking about the chords, you're thinking about the pentatonics, and then you're thinking about the major scales, okay? Now you can also use CAGED for minor. I'll have to do another video on that because that's a whole other thing, but that isn't talked about very much at all either. So people get confused and think, oh, CAGED, it's all about major. A lot of it is about major, but that's because of the way it's presented. But you can easily transform all of these ideas I've just come up with and do the whole thing across minor, and it works totally as well. But you just don't, most videos are geared around major. So I will do another video on using CAGED in minor.